Hello again, this is Earl. I'm sitting in the home office of Custom Handrails, and we're going to go over a project that I did recently of a damaged piece of handrail in an older home, 150-year-old home that's being converted into a bed and breakfast. And unfortunately, in the process of sprucing this place up, he lost a large piece of the horsehair plaster. It fell down and smashed the wreath section of the handrail, unfortunately, and broke several of the balusters. So if you'd like, as you can see, I still have the seat back here. You can get yourself a cup of coffee, and we're going to get started with some pictures on this project. So let's get started. Okay, here's the photograph that was sent to me of the handrail on the stairs with the missing section down here. This was damaged to the point where it was not fixable. But he sent me all of the pieces, and I was able to hot glue those back together so that it was accurately reassembled. And then it was shot with a laser and imported into rhinoceros. And that's the clip that we're going to take a look at next. You are in rhinoceros, and after you do your laser shoot of your piece, this is kind of what things look like when you import this into rhinoceros. You get a series of laser readings, or laser point readings, numerically represented here so that you can kind of get an idea of the progression that you shot this in. And this is kind of what you get. It's a little daunting when you first get into this to try and figure out what's going on, but it makes sense after you work with it for a while. So this is the removing the number sequence off of here. You can see the different points that were shot here, and the software connects each point with a straight line. So this is what you end up having to work with. Now, mind you, this is just a skeleton that has to be refined some. I'm not going to go into that today. There's a process that it took me a while to kind of figure out here in order to get a nice, smooth, fair transition and make this handrail. One of the challenges of this job was the profile itself. That's up here in the top. I did a tracing of the top joint and the bottom joint. And keep in mind, this was made 150 years ago, a lot of it which was handwork. And depending on the skill of the handrail mechanic, he may not have kept the profile symmetrical through the whole length of the handrail. So that presented itself as a challenge. So how bad was it? Well, I'll slide this bottom profile onto the top so you can get an idea of what we're looking at. This is how much the profile varied from top to bottom. Now, in rhinoceros, the different procedures you can use, that's workable. We can do that. And this is the 3D rendering of the handrail itself, taken from the skeleton that we imported from the laser shoot, and we got it to look pretty good. It's got the kinks out, made everything work properly. As you can see, this was the top profile here, and the bottom one was the same, imported from the tracing, and it gets blended from top to bottom so it doesn't get awkward. So the next process would be to get a piece of lumber big enough that you can mill this piece out of. This happened to be cherry. It took me a little while to find a cherry that was 11 inches wide, all heartwood with no defects. I used 2 pieces of 8/4, and this is what we're going to be importing now into RhinoCam in order to do the toolpaths for this. So that's going to be our next clip. Okay, here's our piece, and I opened up another Rhino file, and RhinoCam operates within Rhinoceros, which makes it convenient to make changes on the fly and not have to jump back and forth between programs, which is nice. So here's our piece that we want to mill out, our piece of handrail and our block, our stock of wood, and let's just remove the wood so we can see this handrail and the different procedures we're going to use here. We have to get the bulk of the wood off of this, so we're going to start out with a profiling procedure to get this off. I'll simulate it so you can see what's going on here. And we're going to do both sides of this, so we'll speed this up a little bit so you can see it, and then we'll go to the actual so you can see how this works in real time. Alright, the next step is going to be a roughing pass on the top of the handrail. You can see what that's going to look like here. Multiple passes, just hogging out some of the wood, keeping a distance away from the finished product. So let's take a look at that, see what that looks like in real time. Next, we're going to take some of the rough bumps out of this thing from the horizontal roughing and smooth it out a little bit, get it ready for finishing. So we'll do a preliminary here and see what that's going to look like. That's what we're looking at next, and then we're going to go from there right on to the finishing, which we don't have to watch that whole thing. So that's the next two steps we're going to look at. These last two photographs show the finished piece starting to take shape here, with the original laying on top of the stock there, so that you can get an idea of what we're doing here and how it looks compared to the original. This is a great shot here showing the finishing of the top side, and the 4th axis index are flipping it over, getting it ready for starting to mill out the underside. This photograph shows the underside of the rail after the two sides have been milled and drop away, and the procedure on this is basically the same as on the top, doing the roughing passes, the finish passes, and that's also what has to be done to the sides as well, the same procedure. We're not going to go into that right now. So let's take a look at the finished pieces next to one another and see how they look. Okay, that just about wraps up the handrail. We did have one final step to do, and that was to cut the dovetails in the bottom end of the balusters that I had turned. I had somebody do that for me that specializes in that. They were sent with a longer base, and I matched up the dovetails with the existing. So that's just about it. That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch up with you next time. Thanks for watching. Before I let you go, I need to plug this custom handrails thing one more time. Here's a broken handrail that I did recently, just to show that this isn't just something I do once in a while. I get presented with these projects all the time. This is an existing stairway that isn't going to be changed, so the center line of rail has to be maintained, the newel post location, and the elevation of all the components. So it was done basically in the same manner as the video that we just watched, and here is the finished product. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.